Top podcast. It's not HD. It's the Gen X, Gen Z. This is Over Top podcast. We are coming to you from
WDJY 99.1 FM.
Atlanta, and yeah, this is my showtime. But let's introduce my panel this time. Playmaker, we're gonna start with you.
Hey, how's everybody doing out there?
Ron, what's good? What's good?
Hey man, just trying to make a way.
And we don't have Tori on the show, but we got the two next best things. My mother and father. How y'all doing?
Good, Q. Good, Q. What's going on, man?
Hello, Q.
All right, it's still my show, but we still got to do an Ask Toya, even though she's not here. But HD has that Ask Toya.
Got you.
After you.
This is the Ask Toya for the evening. For a time, there have been a couple of Black positive shows that dealt with our issues. Oh, here we go. Of the community, like The Rock, Living Single, or just made you laugh, like Martin, Steve Harvey, the Bernie Mac show. And we all enjoyed watching those shows. Nowadays, though, most of our shows, especially our reality TV shows us in a totally different light. These shows sexualize women, shows us fighting each other, shows us domesticating men, but it also shows our character making money, which is good. However, the negative way that they treat each other overshadows the positive. Do you think the negative images of these shows affect our culture?
Ron, we're gonna start with Ron.
Make sure I'm not on mute. 90% of what people do from a psychological perspective is modeling. So when people see imagery, they tend to internalize the imagery, take the imagery in, and replicate the images that they see. Television has been the biggest medium of communication probably the last 115 years. So yeah, I'm gonna say 115 years. So probably the last maybe 75. But when you identify that, it has had a major impact on what our culture is here in America and throughout the world. So yeah, I feel like it has a major significant impact, and I feel like some of the images that we see are not flattering of our community, and they could be a little bit more representative of what we see. And one of the things that made William H. Cosby so good, or Bill Cosby so good, was that he presented an image of Black folks, professional folks, and families, because he believed strongly in those ideals.
Playmaker, your response to that, or your own thoughts?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I think when you look at the shows now and you look at some of the issues we're having in our community, I think is a direct a sign of what's going on at the time. You see a lot of the shows are talking about fast money, and now you see people don't want to take jobs, honest jobs like working at McDonald's and just some, your normal hardworking jobs. Everybody's talking about spending thousands of dollars to wine and dine people. I think they get all that stuff from television, and when you see people living these extravagant, unrealistic lifestyles, and people are now trying to duplicate those in a very negative way. So I definitely think that it does have a direct impact to what we see in our communities today.
I'm going to piggyback off that. I'll get to y'all too in a second, because you did say it's a TV nowadays. It is based off of real life, because most writers, they take what they see in real life and they try and imitate that into TV, which is why you get a lot of reality shows specifically talking about hustling, getting the money. Unfortunately, that does come with a negative stereotype, specifically when they say reality, but we know it's not 100% reality, because they got script everything. Then you got black women against each other. Majority of the time, it is black women against each other, which has further pushed that stereotype. And then when you try and flip it, for example, yeah, real housewives of whatever current city, where that's all they did. And then Kevin Hart, if everyone remembers Real Husbands of Hollywood, they try and flip that to do it that way. So, and then there's some not complete events like black men. They're successful, but they're joking. They're joking a lot. They're doing being stereotypes, which is good seeing that's black representation. But when it's black representation in a negative way, that is a problem. And hopefully, when the next generation of writers out goes the more reality side and in comes, now you're getting more black superheroes. Black families are starting to make a return, which could be a good segue in a second. Those are starting to make a return now as the older generation of writers move out the way and the newer generation of writers come in the way. Mother, father, responses?
Do I think they have a negative impact? Sometimes I do, because I am one for watching. I call it trash TV. I love the shows. If I had a little teenager or a young child, I wouldn't let them watch the shows, because you see how they live. And it seems like, to me, some of the women are only with these men because of the dollar signs. So is it impacting our children? Yes. Or our young adults? Yes, it is. Because they are seeing, I can put up with these antics because he makes 7, 8 figures. I can act a monkey on TV because I'm going to get paid 7 figures. It's just, we just have to learn that what we see on TV is not always reality.
So I'm gonna take it from a different standpoint, and I agree with everybody on the panel. Yes, it is a negative impact in our community and how we view. But I lived in a place called I lived in Albertsville, Pennsylvania. Albertsville, Pennsylvania is probably 5 to 7% black. So it's probably 80 to 90% white people, Caucasian, and other races. And what this does when they watch television and see us in those negative lights or chasing the bag and wearing our pants sagging and talking, the talk they talk on the TV, and because they're not around African Americans or black people on a regular basis, they automatically think what they see on TV is an accurate portrayal of black people, and that's not necessarily the case. We understand that with reality TV, they're acting and they're playing, but in certain parts of the country where the population of African Americans are low, and the only thing that other races see of African Americans is on television and what television portray, they think all African Americans act that way or all African Americans is that way. So not only does it have and for the culture, I'm a stern believer as far as in your household as a parent, you can monitor that. So at that point, I think as in society, I think parents can monitor what their children can and can't see. But outside of that culture, if you live in a place where the numbers is low in population of blacks for the cultures, they can only take for what they see on TV and depict all black people, all African American people in that box. So not only I believe does it affect, our culture in our neighborhoods, but it also affects other regions because they don't see us in our truest form.
Playmaker, we got a little time. I'm gonna throw it at you this way because he didn't mention how people who may not be around black people often, that they think what they see on TV, especially around early that early 2010s, when there was a lot of reality TV show. Before that, where there's a lot of it would be and you're gonna go to this since you have a son. When you guys start watching TV, it would have the main character and then the token black friend or a token black character. Whose fault do you think it is that it's black people were portrayed a certain way on TV? Specifically, is it the writers? Is it the actors not standing up for themselves and just doing that? Or is it like another option? or another reason?
Well, that's a lot to unpack. So let me try to break it down in a couple of different ways. So I think you have to kind of take a look at who is where's the money. So the black actors have limited control because they don't control the television stations, the networks, and all that. So if they want to make a living, they have to sometimes take roles that may not be the best roles or roles that they would like to take. So I think some of that is outside of their control, is controlled by who controls the companies. And then when you look at just traditionally how hard it has been for Blacks to make it into the industry, when you come from a place of the blackface and the Sambo and all of the negative things, to just trying to get a role in which nobody is killing anybody, or a role where nobody's not on drugs. I mean, if you look back a couple of years ago, that was all of the roles that was kind of given to a certain part of the population, especially when you were trying to get rappers to go into to film. You saw a lot of them were playing drug dealers and gang members and things like that. So I think that it is a lot to do with who controls the money that kind of dictates the roles that people have access to and what we see on television.
Any response to that, or any want to piggyback off anything?
I'm gonna hit you in the head with two facts. In the 70s, Norman Lear was a major producer of a lot of the black shows that we saw. Good Times, I think The Jeffersons, a number of different shows that we saw. One of the characters who was a great man, James Amos, bucked against the principle of the families not being able to ever escape the ghetto or have a level of upward mobility. Thus, he was killed off the show. So when you look at television, there's always a narrative effectively admitted by some of these producers who have entertainment value, but ulterior motive to a certain degree. Even when you think about Keith, and he has the NFL contract, he blows his knee out right before they get ready to get out together. So when we reflect on those two things, some of those shows, some of those storylines within inside those shows, those things are reflective of people telling our story and us not having a lot of control over our narrative.
I'm gonna piggyback on a little bit, Quentin. We have a little time. I think, and I know we're gonna get in a little bit more. But I think the imageries of TV tells a story, and I think again a lot of people who look at TV little images think that's the appropriate way to act, the appropriate way to conduct ourselves, because that's the only outlet that they have to see it. So I think it's very important when you are looking at television shows, look at it with a more of a critical eye and saying, okay, that's what they doing, and more of entertainment versus more of this is how I'm gonna conduct myself going forward.
Yes, Stevens. Does anyone have Toya's where can people send to ask Toya a question?
You can send to ask Toya74@gmail.com. You can also send it to Toya EL on TikTok. And again, thank you for the questions. If you guys have any questions, please send it to those handles, and we would definitely get it to you. Again, I'm not Toya, but I'm a representative today. But so that's how we gonna do. But great questions, guys. Great questions.
Great questions. Now, I wrote down some names of black families in TV. We have the Winslows, the Williams, the Banks, the Sanfords, the Johnsons, the Evans, the Jeffersons, the McCullens, the Huxtables, the Prouds, and the Freemans. I think it's safe to say we as African Americans, and I don't know if I speak for everybody here, but I know me, especially my mother, we like watching TV. And nothing's better than seeing black people on TV, especially in a role you didn't think that they would get. And for the longest time, we as a community, we would have to watch the Caucasian families. there wouldn't be a lot of representation for us. Then in the 70s and 80s, we got shows like, as controversial as he is now, The Bill Cosby Show, The Jeffersons, and Good Times. And the latter series goes down in history as the very first sitcom to feature two Black parents as leads. This opened doors for more shows like That's So Raven, and then animated shows like The Proud Family and The Boondocks, which then opened doors for more shows, modern shows like Blackish, then the spinoff show Grownish, and then the reboot of The Proud Family. I think it's Proud and Powerful, something like that. Some Black families even record themselves in their everyday lives for social media, for another an alternative reality look into what Black families may go through just in a regular city with their family. Of course, there are other shows with Black character leads, or with that may be centered around Black struggle, Black issue. But this show specifically is focused on the African American family dynamic. With that being said, Playmaker, we start with you. So, you perfect background for this because I grew up, and whether I liked it or not, every morning before I get up to school, what was on? Sanford and Son. Every morning. That song, you almost wake up to it. Now, will you do something similar for your son, like growing up, getting ready for school, showing him the Black family dynamics that you may not have, but how other Black family dynamics may be shown on TV or even on YouTube?
Okay, so I definitely believe with all of the different subliminal messages that they try to push through television, it is definitely important to kind of pay attention to what your child is viewing. So I think that that was definitely be something I'll be paying attention to, just to kind of make sure what they're receiving is something positive, and or if it's not positive, that we have a chance to have a conversation. And then when I think back to a lot of the shows that I used to watch growing up, a lot of those shows tried to address issues that were going on in the Black community, whether it was police brutality, racism, all of the things that kind of impact our community, as well as when you look at Sanford and Sons, you see the father-son relationship, where there's a lot of different things you can kind of pick apart from that. But it was definitely, you see how those two interacted, and at the end of the day, they always had each other's back. When you look at the Bernie Mac show, where you saw that, he was doing well, the mom of the kids were not doing well, he kind of took on that responsibility. You see a lot of those things in our community now, where people are adopting their sisters' kids because their sisters have drug abuse issues, all that. So all these type of things you still kind of see happening in our community. Even when you look at Sanford and Sons, you have the drunk uncle, or somebody that people don't really talk about like a lot, but they're still part of the family. All these things are things that happen to us, and we still need to have a conversation about that. So I will say that as those images, as those things kind of are presenting themselves, I think that gives an opportunity to have a teaching moment. And I think that's what I would like to do. Hopefully it can be a fun and an enjoyable and entertaining thing. But I think as a parent, you always got to look at potential, what is being fed to your child. And if things are not what you think they should be, how you can kind of get in there and correct them and have conversations about them.
Yeah, good. Ron, a similar question along with leading up to the next question. Did you show your family the black families on TV as they're growing up? And then segue that into how important is it to see Black families in TV? Not just like Black characters. We all see the Black character, they're going on, they're trying, like I said, doing money, all that. How important is it the Black family? How important is showing the family aspect of African Americans on TV?
It's extremely important for them to see images just like them. What's really crazy is wow, my two older children are really into theater and have been in a number of different plays and a number of different productions. My oldest, is, I mean, my middle baby, which is my daughter, is really active in theater in school. And so showing them images of things that are really important has been really good for their psyche, which is really interesting in terms of what you're saying and why you asked that question. My kids went to a predominantly Caucasian charter school, and they endured some interesting times at that school. And some of the things that took place in those circumstances, they needed positive images. So I showed them positive imagery, but I also had a little bit outside of what we talked about. I had Sunday school that I would start with them, and I would introduce Black figures to them like Garrett Morgan, Matthew Henson. And one of my friends, we have a running debate all the time about improvement of our community and television imagery and things of that nature. And he said, man, it's up to us to present those things to them. So I also showed them powerful things of images, not just related to entertainment, but to positive Black figures that are a part of our community to enhance their understanding of their history. Because nobody is giving the kids the history like I got. I grew up in Chocolate City, and I know I'm a little bit off the topic, but I'm about to get right back on. Nobody showed us though that imagery like well, I saw it, and I had a lot of African American people in my sphere, and that helped me out a lot. But I think my kids needed to see it, have a positive image and a positive foundation of things for themselves. Go ahead, Hank. I'm sorry.
No, before we get too far away from, I definitely, since we are talking about Black families and TV, and I know right now in his latter age, Bill Cosby get a lot of flack in what's going on, what he did in his personal life. But I think we'll be remiss if we don't really kind of zoom in on the Cosby Show and really appreciate what was done during the Cosby Show. That was the first time in Black history where we seen successful Black families, not poor, not living in the ghettos. You said you had a doctor and you had a lawyer, and they raised 5 kids, and they showed that we do raise families. We are smart. We are educated. We can go to school. We can do something. Now, granted, there had some stuff going on with that, but I think we were remiss with not really celebrating not just the Cosby Show, the spinoff that actually showed the first HBCU with him in college and different worlds. So those are two. I mean, don't get me wrong, Sanford Son, I love him funny. Martin, I love him funny, but those are two shows that I think that was pivotal to actually for young blacks to see that's in the inner city, say, wow, I can aspire to be that too. Go ahead, Nis.
Actually, I think you may gonna touch on this, but it was good thing you said. The good thing to have the Cosby Show had a spinoff going to HBCU, because my modern version of that for people who are not going to go back to watch that show or not going to support anything Bill Cosby would be Blackish, and then going into Grownish, where not just one, but 2 of the children went to at least 2 college. I forget if it was HBCU, but went to college. So that is important. That is important to show, hey, and not everything has to be we from the bottom. Sometimes there are families, and it's good to show this to children. There are Black African American families who start at the top, and they still promote you going to college and going to college and not falling into what would be called the streets. But Playmaker, you had something you want to say?
Just really briefly, and I think also when you look at the timing of the show, when the Jeffersons was first introduced, it was during a time where the thought process was African Americans were lazy, that they just wanted to accept welfare and stuff like that. But then you hit the market with the Jeffersons, that shows a guy who worked hard from the bottom, built up his own business, and was still looking to expand. So that gives people, hey, some sign of hope to say, okay, even though we know this is not real life, but you could see someone start from a lower place and kind of get to excel to a successful businessman. That's all I wanted to say.
Right. So we talked about all the positives that we see in Black families, but there are some negatives, even back then. So older Black characters, they do get some criticism for not being a good representation of Black people. Unfortunately, but specifically Black women, specifically characters like Florida Evans from Good Times. For what if you look at video on Good Times, you'll see Florida Evans would keeping her family in the hood, which someone mentioned earlier is why the father of the show was killed off for not accepting that. And then you have other Black women who's a mother, Rochelle from Everybody Hates Chris. Now, if I remember correctly, that was a story of Chris Rock retelling his life. So I guess that's how his mother actually was. But her just sometimes being just an objectively bad mother to, and specifically to Chris in particular. So this is supposed to be a question for Tori, but she couldn't make it. Speaking of mothers, I hope her mother is doing okay. So I got another mother here. Why is it hard for TV writers to write Black women and moms in TV shows? And I'll ask you another question follow after this.
I believe that we don't have good representation of good writers from Black mothers because they're not Black mothers doing the writing. We have white men doing the writing, white women doing the writing, maybe some Black men, but not Black mothers. We need more Black mothers doing the writing. A white man cannot write a story about how a Black woman's going to react to a child. A white woman cannot do that. Hispanic woman cannot do that. A Black man cannot do that. Only a female, a mother, will be able to tell you how another mother would react. So I think we need more African American female mothers doing the writing. And what was your follow-up question?
Right. And this question, this would be this was to you particular, but this be open to anybody else, as well as anyone who may see this on our YouTube channel over the top podcast on YouTube, and watch a sports one too while I'm at it. Can you particular and everyone else can name a good Black mother in family series that you remember?
Ooh.
Vivian from
He said it was my question.
Oh, I forgot to say everybody jumping. I'm sorry.
Me first, then you can jump in later.
Lady first, but yeah, it's for the panel too.
I'm sorry.
There were so many. You had Claire Huxtable, who was a good mother. Florida was an okay mother. She loved her children. Who else was there? Was Vivian Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Let's see. There's so many. You had Harriet Winslow from Family Matters. All these women love their children. They would
Marla
go.
Gibbs.
Oh yeah.
Marla Gibbs.
Marla Gibbs on
227.
Oh, and her sidekick, Rose Holloway.
Rose Holloway, yeah.
You had Pearl Shea, who was the grandmother. She took in her grandson, because his father was in the military. I mean, all these women were great mothers. If you liked them, how they raised their children or not, they did what they could for their children. They wanted the best for their children. They didn't want them on the streets. They didn't want them in gangs. They didn't want them to be just the next Rudy Poop. They wanted the best for their kid, whether it went to college, whether it was being a parent of their own, or what. They just wanted the best.
So I'll jump in. My bad. So I'll jump in real quick because I have two off the top of my head and I don't want to forget them. Modern take on this. Hope from Blackish. She was a doctor or a nurse? I can't remember off the top of my head, but she still made time for her family. Doctor. Tried to make time for her kids whenever she could. Tried to set them on the right path. A little overprotective sometimes, but she tried. And another one, I can't remember her name, but I remember the show My Wife and Kids, which is one of the shows I watched that I remember. Yeah. the mother from that show in particular, I remember she was be able to hold the household down. She had a high-end job. I forget which job she had. And there was
Tisha
a
Campbell.
season where she went back to college to further her degree as well, while still be able to maintain her job, while still be able to maintain the 3 kids. And then technically the 4th, when the oldest got married and they lived in their house. And then the grandchild but yeah, those are 2 I remember. Anyone
I
else
got
can
one
remember?
more. I got one more, and I'm gonna leave it alone. And this one is Wanda from the Bernie Mac show. When the Mac show, them wasn't her children. Them was Bernie's kids' children. It was his nieces and nephews, and she took them in and cared for them as if they was her own. So that's another example of a good black co-star woman also, mother also.
Playmaker, you got some off the top of your head?
Well, I don't want to go through the exhausted list of Black mothers. I just want to go back and piggyback on what Deidre said. I wanted to, when you talked about the Mrs. Evans and some of those mothers that were negative, I think is also something we have to remember is that parenting is very hard, and those mothers were not necessarily abusive, but they just may not have gotten everything correct. And I think that's what happens in a lot of households today. That parents are doing the best that they can. They may not always get it right, but in most cases they're trying to do the best that they can. I think when you talked about those 2 examples of Black mothers that may have not have missed the mark, I think if you look at them as a complete character, they did love those kids, and they did try to do the best within their capabilities, but they did miss the mark in some areas.
Ron, do you have any? Because I have a question off the top of my head I'm going to ask, but Ron, do you have any other mothers that you can think of?
You're on mute, Ron.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Nah, we covered the gambit on that. I think we hit pretty much everybody that I could think of.
Okay, so I do have this top of my head. I do have a general question. Anyone can answer this, and we'll get back on script. Because you didn't mention the Bernie Mac show, and the whole premise of Bernie Mac is Bernie Mac living alive, don't have any kids. Then he had to become a father figure and take care of kids that weren't particularly his. So this is a question for anyone who may have the answer to it. How important do you think that show was for a Black man who he's living a life, he's doing what he's doing, but he's able to put that aside and take care of children that aren't his own, especially when we think nowadays where there are single Black women who have children, and then there's Black men who may not want to step in and raise someone else's children. If anyone does have the answer for that.
Come on, Black men.
I think a lot of that is based around imagery, man, and I think that's a lot of the narrative that we are sold. I think that's one of the reasons why we have to do education about our children, as well as the images that we're seeing. Like, those images are really powerful, and the importance of enhancing ideally what the family represents in our community and what it was that made us great is essential. And I think one of the things that we don't even realize in terms of why the idea of breaking down the Black family, 1964 was the start of it. And in the early 60s, guess who funded the daggone civil rights movement? It was Black families. So essentially, those images that they saw and the thought process of the Black family was key in developing the foundation of a lot of the things that happened in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s in terms of progress in the Black community.
Yeah, Playmaker, you had your hand up. You had thought on this, and you are muted. You are muted.
When you mentioned the Barney Mac thing, the thing that I take away from that is what's missing in our society today. Not necessarily him going to the extreme of taking in the kids, but the sense of community. We don't have a lot of people helping people in the community to kind of get to the next level, or just to kind of help out. You see everybody just kind of for self. Bernie Mac could have been like, you know what? I got this great life going on. I'm not going to try to help anyone, even though that's his family. But he could have been like, nah, get somebody else. But he stepped up. I think what you see now missing in the community is that we don't have role models, we don't have mentors, we don't have volunteers, we don't have a lot of those people helping shape the community like we once had years ago. And that's what I get from that.
And also, you're forgetting the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I was about to bring that up too.
The Fresh Prince was Vivian's nephew, and Uncle Phil opened up his mansion to this young man from Philly and took him in and treated him as his own son, and sent him and made sure he got the best and sent him to college. So could we do that for our spouses' family? Could we take in our spouses' family members, kids, and raise them as our own as well?
Good. So I'll hop back on script. HD. So speaking of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the actual father figure in that show, he was written to what we considered a bad father, or even a bad black man. So I would ask you this: is it good to have objectively bad black characters in TV, as long as the watchers, us, are told, yeah, those are the bad character. That is a bad character. That's not what you're supposed to be as a character or as a person.
No, solid question. I do think you got to look at we in the perfect world we have everybody perfect. Then I don't think that we live in that world. I do think it's good to have a variety of different characters played, depending on the script or depending on the TV shows. Because when you look at the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, although Will's father was in a negative light or was a negative character, if you didn't have that component of him being that negative character, you wouldn't have seen the contrast of Phil, his Uncle Phil, and get the whole picture, the whole scene. I think even that show, one of the most powerful scenes, and I think whoever saw the show remember it vividly, because that one of the most powerful scenes of the show is when they show the dynamic of his father come back and he but goes away and take Will with him, and again he disappointed him, and it was Will and Uncle Phil in the room, and they're embracing. He just kind of had to scream and say, "Why don't my father wants me?" That if there wasn't no father, you wouldn't have got the full impact of the scene or what the writers were trying to convey. So I think it's good to have the objective, or good to have the negative villain in the show, although it's a bad character, if you use it to show the contrast of the point or the reference you're trying to get across. Now, I do think there's a fine line, load off the script, as far as roles you take, as far as your moral character or your moral standards. I don't think we should take roles that go against their moral standards or their decision making as the bad characters. So for example, if you have a heavy moral standards on beating women, I don't think you should take a character that beat up on women because you're a moral stance. I think there's a line you got to draw as a professional, but I do think a lot of times you need the negative to show the whole picture to bring it to the positive.
Playmaker, any response to that?
Yes, actually, two things. I agree. I agree with Hank, and I would say two things. One, as long as if you're talking about an all black show, definitely. The thing that I didn't like is at one period of time you saw all of the black actors playing negative roles. So as long as it's kind of treated equal, okay. But if it's just black guys playing the bad guys, the white guys playing the good guys, I don't like that. And then another thing that I think, if you ever watch The Chi, when I watch that show, I get confused because I don't know who is supposed to be good or who's supposed to be bad or who's hustling or whatever. They kind of show everyone in their dirt, but you don't know who to root for or who to look down on. And I don't know if that's done on purpose, so you could just kind of feel who you relate to. But you had for people who may be familiar with the show, you had Ronnie, who was an alcoholic who was trying to get his life together, but he ended up he was accused of killing the guy. He didn't kill the guy. It was just very confusing to kind of figure out who was really on the good side and who was on the bad side. So from that, in cases like that, I think there should be a clear line. And then in cases where you have predominantly one race or the other, I don't think that the black guy should always be the bad guy.
Agreed. Ron, you had a thought?
Well, when I reflect back on what Playmaker just said, I really want to revisit one aspect of what I said earlier. The 60s and 70s were a great time where television programs expanded and had a significant impact on the homes. But there's another part to film in movies that came along at that same time, and that speaks to some aspects of the negative function of what we saw, and that's the black exploitation movie. And so when you reflect on those black exploitation movies, and you reflect on how those things merged into popular culture, like even on some of the shows that were predominantly Caucasian, you had a Huggy Bear, which was a goddamn pimp. Some of the things, like the portrayals of who we were, and like Hank said earlier, the characters that we portrayed, we always portrayed that slick street dude, and aspects of that is stuff that a lot of our Antonio Fargas, some of our forefathers took those roles to really kind of expand on certain things. But one of the great shows, and one of the first shows to class a black male, and we don't necessarily hear a lot about it, was Link of the Mod Squad, Brother Clarence Williams, who just passed away. And my uncle and them used to talk about him a lot, and how much his imagery was positive and how they reflected on it and they looked at it. So that's a show from the 60s, man, that had some positive imagery and some a positive black male in it. But I think we also have to realize that imagery and television and media plays a major role in it. And we have to control some aspects of the narrative and put good stuff in front of our kids and our young people as well.
Great stuff, because I had a question specific. I had a question just popped my head specifically about that. So, for people who don't know, my mother, she is a teacher. Like me, I'm going to go into teaching eventually as well. With with more black characters being in TV, black characters as a whole being more diverse, not just a street dude or not just the rich black man. You have black characters who are now being more nerdy black characters, or black characters part of the LGBTQ community. So specifically, do you see? I know I've been in your classroom. There's not a lot of black kids in the classroom. It's more Hispanic. But do you see children seeing the newer shows now that being more equal to everybody, more inclusive to everybody? Do you see them being more acceptive of other children who are different now because of what we see on TV, or do you not see that much of a difference?
My kids really don't talk about actual like series or TV shows. My kids more so talk about cartoons. They talk about stuff on TikTok. They do TikTok dances. They don't actually say they sit down and watch certain TV shows like you did when you were younger. They're all into social media and what they see. Like I had a little boy today. I asked him what he did over the weekend. He played some game. I can't remember the name of the game. I know you know it. Where he played with his uncle and he was killing people. That's what he was talking about. They don't talk about TV shows.
Now, I'm gonna jump in right there, Q. But one of the shows that was out actually when we was growing up, and it showed a young man in a whole different light, and it was Family Matters. Then when you got Steve Urkel, who was little nerdy, but he's so smart on the scientific end. And if you really watch him, you would say, "Wow, this guy." Yeah, he look a little nerd, look a little off in certain areas, but when you start talking about different subjects in biology and math, you see how super smart he was, even to the point where he created an alter ego and stuff in the character of Stefan Raquel. And and that goes against the grain of what people view black boys are, because he wasn't in sports, he wasn't in the streets, he wasn't hood, but he still used his mind to do great things.
And I just want to piggyback. I'm sorry, I want to piggyback off what Ron said earlier, talking about how people were presented in movies back in the day with the pimps and stuff. We also had black women portrayed as maids. If you look at Imitation of Life, the black maid, she had a child who could pass for white, and that child did not want to have anything to do with her mother, but she was there. She did not care that her daughter didn't love her, but she was there until the end of time. Isabel Sanford was in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier as the maid. You had all these women back in the day, so like it was said earlier, we did not have the studios, we didn't have the money, and we took roles that we had to take. And back then, we took the role as maids. Florida Evans was a spinoff of Maude. She was the maid. And James, his name wasn't James on Maude. When it went on to Good Times, they changed his name. But Florida was a maid on Maude.
Hey, you know why I was laughing? Forgive me. It was inappropriate at the time for what it is that you're talking about. But my wife used to be a facilitator at the school. She used to run a daycare program. And the power of media is really powerful because her kids were at school one day and she was looking at them and she was like, why are they doing all these crazy movements? And then she looked up and the kids was playing Matrix. And a couple of the kids was throwing rocks at the kid and he had to dodge them.
Wow.
So the power of television is extremely powerful. And you got to really kind of tell your kids, man, yo, that's entertainment. That is not stuff that you can see in real life. You can't be jumping off buildings or standing there throwing rocks and playing Matrix with your friends. So, and that's parents being parents, on top of the entertainment.
I'm just going to stick with you for a second because I do it because another question. When it comes to representation, how important is it? Because you don't see it often, like it's a rarity, to see a black child or is a black family member in TV who may have a mental disability. How important would it be, like, for maybe a black child? He's grown up. He's in a grown up black family, but he may just be wrong. Whatever it is, how important do you think it is for them to see that in TV?
You know what? It's not been any children with special needs on TV that I can even think of. I think not of a color persuasion. There was a kid in this program in the early 90s that was a great representation of what it would be like to be with a disability, but I've never seen one. With the rising rate of autism in children in this country and the numbers in the African American community, it would be excellent to see that program be played out, but it's not something that we see. People don't just generally identify with that.
So I would say, because where you said, I remember specifically in the new Proud Family, one of the twins, if anyone remembers the Proud Family, one of the twins, I think they just labeled him as autistic.
Okay, well, I never seen the Proud Family from the perspective of just like consistently, but that's cool. I ain't know that.
Because I saw a clip. I didn't see an episode, but I saw a clip of the teacher, because it was at daycare. The teacher was telling Oscar Proud that your child is learning a little slower than everybody else. I think it was he was not feeling pain like other child should, and you kind of see. I think that how they showed how he reacted was thing how a black man, he's like, no, there's nothing wrong with my child, and you explain, no, this will be a good thing, you can work with it, and you can see the wheels turning out. Okay, I'm just gonna just teach him a little bit differently, but as long as he's still my son.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that you have to navigate, because I think my son is one of the bravest people I know, because in terms of how he processed going into acting, I didn't think that was something he would do. And I really kind of looked at it like, man, how you gonna remember all them lines? How you gonna remember his spots? How you gonna remember his marks? And I realized that I placed limits that no one else did. And all inclusive, he goes and then he does a great job. Actually, Jay was in the play with him in the program maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They have been a good representation for one another and good imagery for kids in the community. And our children are very active in a number of different things that are pretty positive for younger kids. I think, to answer your question, it would be great to see kids in that space. Never seen the Proud Family consistently. Not enough to really grasp that part of it, but it would be cool to see that imagery, because that's a part of the spirit, not just in the African American community, but all of our communities. We are dealing with a significant uptick of autism and birth defects at points in times with our children.
Yes, sir. Now we are going to get to, because we're now running a little long time, but do have the final open table question, and then the final thoughts. Open table. We'll start with Premier first, because it's been a while since we've heard your voice. Who is your favorite Black character and or Black family that you remember from watching TV?
I'm glad I got to go first with this one. I had to have one or two just in case. And I'm going to go with the Huxtables. And I think that this is a no-brainer for my generation. Bill Cosby was what everybody thought a dad should be. He was funny. He was educated. He was he wasn't he had a he was empathetic. Claire was, a beautiful mom. She was, did everything that you would just think a family unit could be. The kids, you could kind of imagine yourself being Theo when I was growing up, some of the kind of things that he was doing, some of the trouble he was getting into. So for me, it was definitely the Cosby Show. And I think that a lot of people in my generation looked up to the Cosbys and wanted to be a Cosby, and even tried to model their families as the Cosby Show did.
We go back to Ron.
You know what I'm gonna pick? I'm gonna pick somebody that's off the map, and I don't think I will pick her. Oh man, I can't even think of what her name was. But it was with the first interracial couple that was married on TV that I saw. Roxy Roker,
Helen Willis.
Lenny Kravitz. What was her name?
Helen Willis.
Helen Willis, right? But her character was so very much down to earth. She was married to a white man, but she was really a representation of true Blackness. And she always really had good conversations with her daughter relative to things that took place in their household, and in the dynamic between them and George, with all the things that George would do or say and be thought-provoking. So she really was like a balance in the midst of that, but at the same time, she was true to herself. He was married to a white man, but she was true to herself. So,
Mom and Pop, you got a couple more minutes, and I'm going to end it off, but I'm going to let y'all go first.
I have two. I have Marion Gilbert and Adele Wayne, which is Patti LaBelle and the late Diane Carroll off of A Different World. I liked Diane Carroll's character because in the beginning, when you first saw her, when you first met her, she was bougie and wanted Whitley to act a certain way, and she wanted her life to go a certain way. And later on, as the show continued, she learned from Whitley that because she didn't do it, because her life didn't turn out the way her mother wanted it, didn't mean she wasn't happy. And I liked Adele Wayne, Patti LaBelle's character, because even though Chipmunk didn't marry the woman that she felt was right for him, she still loved her Chipmunk. And she could tell when something was wrong with him. And what did Adele do? She hopped on that bus and went to go check on her Chipmunk. That's what mamas do.
I gotta go again. I'm talking about him all night. I gotta go with Bernie Mac. Bernie Mac's my dude, and the reason why he was my dude because not only he showed the father side by taking care of the kids and going to the school, he also kept it real with the community. Cause he also so he got you kind of got the mixed. The neighborhood he was in was a mixed neighborhood, a fluent neighborhood, some couple, but mixed Jews and no mixed races. But he also kept it understand that he's not too bougie because he wasn't bougie because he still had a little hood in him, but he had the good hood in him. He always gave you a nugget in between there. I was one of the shows, and I don't know you remember the shows. It was called a United Front. They were the children that go to the mama and ask for one thing, and then go to Bernie ask for another. And he kind of him as a wife sat down and put out a schedule and they said, okay, now we're United Front. So when you say one got to go with the other, and he made it so funny but entertaining that it captivates you, but then drops some little nuggets along the way. So I gotta go with Bernie Mac, sir.
All right, that's gonna be my last one. I gotta make it quick because we're on a time constraint. The Freemans from the Boondocks, specifically, it showed the three views of Black people in America around that time and even today. Got Huey, who sees everything from a woke extremist point of view. Everything he's got to like break down everything, strong Black power, and all that. You got Riley, who he sees everything from the can I curse on the radio? Or no, we on TV. I can't do that. Same thing from the street point of view, where hey, I'm a thug, I'm this, I'm that, I gotta be hard as possible. And then you got Granddad, who's here from hey, as long as it's convenient to me, I'm okay with it. And when it's not convenient for me, is I have a problem with it. But that's it. That's it for the show. Thank you for tuning into
WDJY 99.1 FM, sir.
Thank you. And always, I'm about to say your slogan. May your next move be the game changer.
That may cost you some